Welcome everybody to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we're going to be having a look at comp. This is going to be a lower time frame video. A higher time frame video is up above, so check that out if you haven't already. Let's get into the charts and see what's going on. Okay, so before we jump into the lower time frame counting, we're just going to go over a couple of the ideas we were talking about. So within the bullish count, what we were arguing is that we have this as a completed Y wave into this low. And what we're looking for is that potential to break to the upside. However, we need to be careful because there is potential that within this area, what we could argue is that this move could be A, B, and C, in which case this could be a flat correction. Now, in that scenario over here, what this could then mean is that this is our B wave and we still have a C wave to come to the downside, in which case what we could see is price pushed down to these levels here of this 1312 as a one-to-one, and then back as a minimum requirement into this area here of this 0.618. So we'd be looking for that potential that if this starts to break down one more time, we could still be within a C wave here. Now, we could also argue within the structure that if we are looking at a bigger correction here, what we could get is a bigger A wave here as a flat, we get a B wave down, and then still look for a bigger C wave up. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this. If we get three waves that fails to break back down below this B wave low point here, we could potentially be looking for that continuation to the upside in a C wave. Okay, so let's get into the lower time frame counts here and what we were talking about in the previous video. So within this structure here, we were talking about a couple of things. We were talking about the potential of this being an impulse, saying that what we could have here is that this could be 1, 2, then we're looking at this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we were saying that we were looking for this fifth wave to actually develop to the upside here. Now, we were looking for a fourth wave down like this, but if we look at the time comparison of this smaller wave here to something as big as this, it is very unlikely that these two are matched up, because the time comparison, this is substantially smaller than this wave 4 here, so it starts to become unlikely that these two are matched up. Rather, what I would be looking for here, if we are completed, I'd say that we have something more along these lines where effectively this little wave here has actually been our fourth wave, where this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have this as additional fourth, and then this is our white fifth wave to the upside. So this does comply with this idea. The difference with this is then this would then be saying that what we have here is a move that is completed and we're looking for a deeper retracement. So if this 5-wave move is completed like this, we could be looking for either that direct push to the downside or a bigger 3-wave move to the downside before looking for this continuation up. Now, if we are looking at the bullish way of saying that this is looking to break out and start to trend, what we need to see within this count is that this gets a 3-wave down and then we look for a push up. Now, 1-to-1 would not be a good thing here. If we just see 3 waves to the upside here, this could indicate that we still have that potential to drop down at a later point. What we want to see here is a move up towards this 1618, which is currently sitting off of this golden pocket area here at this 3869 towards this 336 level. So that would be our third wave target we'd be looking for, where we want to see this develop as 1, 2, we get a bigger third wave up to here, we get a fourth wave down, and then we see an additional fifth. That's what we want to see if we want to see a trending move. Now, the other way we were discussing this structure here was that we could actually have something potentially like a diagonal into this point. And what we are saying is that this could be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as a contracting diagonal. Now, if this is the case, what we were saying that we wanted to see here was actually a push to the downside, looking for this blue B wave. Now, we didn't come down as deep as this, and actually we only came down towards this 236 level. Now, what I'm being cautious of, which can happen sometimes when waves start to extend, is we can have shallow retracements. So if this is the case and this is A and we're looking for B and a C, this actual target off of this point would be much higher here and would be looking for this area here of this 15733. So if we do see price continuing to hold, particularly this low here, this 5191, we need to be careful of the idea that this move could actually be extending directly to the upside here if we are going to look at this A wave is actually completing here. Now, if we are looking at something like this, what I'm being cautious of is that this secondary move here could actually be developing as a 1 and a 2. Now, if this is the case, what we'd be saying is that this would be our wave 1. Either this is wave 2 here and we have another 1, 2, or alternatively, this is 1 and we're still looking for 2. Invalidation of this comes by crossing 5181. Now, what we'd be looking for internally here would be that this move is potentially being an A, this is a B, and then this is a C wave. The problem is we can count this first part as 5 waves, so we'd have to say it was something like this as an ABC. Now, the problem I have with this is that this move into this high doesn't reach that 0.618, which is a common area we typically look for. So if we are looking at this in this way as an ABC, what we need to see is 5 waves to the downside. Now this is looking pretty impulsive to the downside, and we have actually moved down here already into this zone here of this 1618 area here, of this 0.618 area here, which would be this 6285. Now, if we do look to see this push down one more time here, potentially we could look to move down lower into this zone, and we could look to target out some of these lower areas here. So if we're looking at this as A, B, and C, the 1-to-1 off of that high would actually be 54.12. But as well as that, I will be keeping an eye on this area here of the 786 and this 854, because they are aligning with the idea of coming back into this 786, this 57.73 area. So if we do see price push down here one more time, potentially we could see something like this. But we also need to be careful within the structure that we don't actually have a sneaky flat correction in here, which would then align with seeing price action looking to explode to the upside. Now, if we are looking at something like this, what we'd be saying is that this could potentially be a wave 1 here. What we then have is that this would be our wave A, this would be B, and then we'd be looking for this as a C wave to the downside. Now, this would have extended way beyond the typical zone that we look for in relationship to this A wave here. If this is the case, what we would need to see is price break back above these highs. Until we break back above these highs, we need to be careful that this move could still look to extend to the downside. So that's why we need to just be a little bit patient with this one and see whether we get confirmation. Now, if this is going to be a secondary 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, what we need to see off of this current level is actually see this hold, and then we need to see price break back above these highs. Now, this could also potentially be in a bigger corrective pattern here, where we say this is A, this is B, and C. So technically speaking, we could be in this B wave. If we are looking at still being in the B wave, we could potentially see something along these lines, A, B, and C, up to this 1-to-1, which would actually bring us back into this zone over here, which, you know, we could potentially even sweep this high, but still make this just as a 3-wave move and then see continuation down. So this would then become A, this would become B, and then we'd get C. So we're going to be on the lookout for this idea that if we do see a 5-wave move up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like this, unless we actually hit this 90.28, we are going to look for potential of continuation down, because it would fit that idea of having the bigger corrective structure to the downside. So this is why, you know, we do have potential counts here where we can see these extensions, but we need to see price action hold these lows here. So this low here, and then this low here, and then we need to start seeing impulsive price action to the upside, you know, price action that has a lot of volume behind it, and seeing that looking for a break to the upside in that way. Now, what we were talking about here is, even if we do lose this low, possibly as long as we hold this zone here of this 57.73, we can look for that possibility of this continuation to the upside. But what we need to see within this count is effectively a move up towards this 137.90 to confirm this idea of a direct extension. And what that would then be saying is that this move has actually become 1-2, and then potentially we're already looking at this as just a bigger 3rd wave with a very, very small wave 2. Now, that's why I don't like this idea of this extending from there. If this is going to become a bigger impulse, it would make more sense to me to see a bit of a deeper retracement here, where we see something like this as an A wave, we see an ABC up, and then we see this grind down a little bit more and potentially come at least down into this previous 4th wave that we've got over here, and then potentially, you know, look for this idea of coming into this lower target box. Now, what we do need to be careful of here is that if this is actually A, this is B, and then we're looking for the C wave down, it is also possible that we could see extension within the C wave. Now, if we're going to see something like that, what we need to be cautious of is something along these lines, where even if we do start to break to the upside here, until we actually break back above the 79.76, need to be cautious of any kind of 3-wave structure up. If we get 3 waves back to the upside here, potentially this would then align with the idea that this could be 1-2, and then we could look for the possibility of a breakdown in a 3rd wave. Now, if we start to break back above this 75.23, it starts to become more likely we're going to see invalidation. But until we actually get back above this level, any kind of 3-wave move up here could just trigger this as 1-2, and then we'd be looking for that 1618 for the most common relationship of wave 1 to wave 3. If we do see something along these lines where we see this as a bigger A, B, and a C, this would align more with that idea that we are looking to come back down into this bigger green box area. So this is why I'm saying we could potentially still see price come back down here one more time into this B wave location if we are going to look for this to continue to the upside. And then obviously we also need to start looking out for that possibility that we could see impulsive price action to the downside. So if we do see this blue wave count play out, we need to watch how we retrace. If we retrace up in 3 waves, this could align with seeing more downside coming in at a later date. So at the moment, I am thinking that it's still likely we could still get some more downside to come in here, but we need to respect the fact that we could get this as a 1 and a 2. So if we do see price start to break to the upside and we take this high, effectively this invalidates this idea of seeing this 5 wave move down, which in that case would either mean that we're going to see this develop as ABC and then we're going to see a break to the downside, or alternatively, like I said, we could potentially just get a direct extension to the upside. So that's what I'm going to be looking out for in the shorter term here. There is potential of extension. We need to see if we can manage to get back above this target box area here. We can look for that possibility of a break to the upside. If we fail to, however, we need to be on the lookout for that possibility of continuation to the downside. Having a look at the daily CPR lines here, what we can see is that we actually came down to this S1 line here and we did find support on this area. What I'm going to be keeping an eye on here is if we do see price push back to the upside, potentially we could find resistance here between this 68.37 to this 72.68. If we do see price move up into this range and we get a rejection, that would align with the idea of this becoming 1 and 2, and then we could look for that break to the downside. If, however, we see price just start to break down directly here, other targets for today is this 56.28, 47 and this 41.98 as potential downside targets. If we do see price look to reverse back to the upside here, potentially we could see price come into this zone, and if we do manage to get back above these central lines, targets for today to the upside is this 75.56, 84.71, 89.62 and this $99 as potential upside targets for today. Now coming over here and moving into the weekly, what we could see here is that we have printed actually a lower CPR line here. So since the beginning of the week, we have moved down through these levels and we haven't had a back test of this besides this little one over here. If we do see price failing to hold this S1 line here, then potential downside targets for this week would be this 51.49 and this 44.51. So this would align with the idea that we could still see continuation to the downside. It's a bigger 3-wave move. Particularly this S2 line here would be very interesting to me. Alternatively, if we do see this area hold and we start to break back to the upside, then targets for this week would actually be this 77.66, this 84.55 and this level here of this 94.21. Now what we could see here is if we have something like this as a bigger ABC pattern, this could align with coming back up into this R1 line or even up into this R2 line up here as a potential target. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that as the week goes on. Now coming over here into the monthly, what we can see is that the monthly CPRs have actually printed higher and these are very tightly spread. Now this is indicating a bullish bias initially, but what we need to see is price either confirm or reject this. So we have had these printed, we've seen price move down through these levels, and we are now currently below these. If we see price look to reject off these zones, then potentially what we could see is price come back into this level here of this 49.53 as a potential target. What we would then be looking for is if we do find support here, we could look to either come back into our central lines or potentially to look to move to the upside. If we lose this zone, then other targets for this month is this level here of this 32.81 and this 14.42 to the downside. If we see price action actually start to move to the upside here, where we see this develop as 5 waves, get back above these central lines here, find support, what we could then see is price look to move to the upside. So targets for this month to the upside is this 84.63, this 102.76 and this 119.72 as possible upside targets for this month. Now we don't always have to interact with all these different levels, but these are just zones that if price moves through them, we can potentially see price pivot on these areas. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video, and leave us some feedback down below Also in the description, you'll find a link to the Discord. Come check it out. It's free to join. Everyone, have a great day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.